Hello and good evening from Washington. I'm Chris Steyerwalt, filling in for Blake Berman, and this is The Hill on NewsNation. A rough road ahead for the administration and the courts, but a smooth ride on Wall Street as markets gave the green light to another slate of tariff exemptions from the president. But Trump giveth and Trump taketh away. Exemptions for smartphones and consumer electronics, but new restrictions in the works for computer chips and pharmaceuticals.
All I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come.
Trump's former White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, our friend, is with us to decipher the tariff talk. But we start with the legal showdown and NewsNation correspondent Robert Sherman, who is live at the White House. Robert, what do we know?
Yeah, hey there, Chris. President Trump has few greater allies on the foreign circuit than President of El Salvador. The two have bonded over these issues of illegal immigration and fighting crime. But this relationship has really been brought to the forefront as we've seen these deportation flights to El Salvador in recent weeks, taking alleged Tren de Aragua and MS-13 gang members out of the country. President Trump saying today he even wants to expand this to possibly include what he calls homegrown criminals. Take a listen.
I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
The administration also pushing back on returning Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States. While the Supreme Court ruled that they have to facilitate his return, the White House's position is since he's from El Salvador and is in El Salvador, the government there would have to send him back. The president of El Salvador saying in the Oval Office today he has no intention of, quote, smuggling a terrorist into the United States. So this legal back and forth here continues. Chris?
Robert Sherman, we thank you very much. Now, the administration is testing a novel spin on the Supreme Court's decision and calling what most legal experts say was a setback, they're calling it a win.
That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So what happens next in this legal battle? Joining us now, our friend Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor. Jesse, please decipher, please decode here what's going on.
I'll do my best. It seems that the Trump administration is taking full advantage of the Supreme Court's, I would say, get out of jail free card, this kind of get out, this idea where the Supreme Court said that the government has to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return, but not effectuate it, meaning don't put any obstacles in the way of getting him back. But, you know, the court doesn't necessarily have to force, or they don't have the authority to force the federal government to take action on a foreign policy point of view. I guess that means don't restrict the $6 million they're paying El Salvador to house these individuals, or don't send a plane, or don't put pressure on tariffs. See, the problem with that is it's expanding and providing a very generous view of the president's foreign powers, and it ultimately saying that supersedes or outweighs an individual's due process rights. And that's concerning because I think the reason everybody's attention's on Abrego Garcia is not necessarily what it is about him, even though the evidence that he's a terrorist or gang member is quite scant. It's that if you start here, who else can be deported and maybe in a way never return to the United States without a proper hearing, proper trial, without proper due process?
Jesse, thank you very much. We're smarter now that we've heard from you. You're always here for us. We appreciate you. Joining us now here in studio is Tricia McLaughlin. She is the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. So you're having a busy day.
We are having a busy day.
You're having a day. Help me understand. We pay El Salvador to house people that the United States government sends to El Salvador, right?
That's right. We have to pay for terrorists to pay for these gang members, to pay for people who terrorize American communities, rape, maim, and murder Americans for sport. These people should be off of U.S. soil. So $6 million is just pennies compared to what we're doing to save this country.
But we're the customer in this relationship, right? We're paying El Salvador to do this work for us.
This is a service.
Okay. So how come we can't ask for them to send this guy back?
This is up to President Bukele because this is his citizen. Keep in mind, this Maryland father that the media so likes to call him, sure, he might be a father just like Osama bin Laden was a father, but he's an MS-13 gang member. He was involved in human trafficking. He was involved in labor trafficking. He was not in this country legally. He had final deportation orders. So, Chris, he should do whatever the President Bukele says he should do, which is stay there. He's exactly where he belongs, Chris.
Those allegations have not been proven, though, right?
Well, I will have to stop you there because actually 2 immigration judges found this and ruled this in 2019 when he was ordered those final deportation orders.
There has been substantial back and forth in this case. But one thing we know for sure is that the administrative error that was admitted by, this is in the district court filing, where on March 15th, although ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador, Abrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error. So it was... Go ahead.
If I can add,
you can do anything.
The reason that he was said he could not go to El Salvador was because he was being targeted by other gangs. Because he is in a gang, because he is an MS-13, he could be deported anywhere else. Egypt, Nicaragua, you name it, he should go there. Regardless, Chris, he should not be on U.S. soil, whether he's in a U.S. detention facility or he's in CCOT, which is where he is now.
But if the court
should not be in American streets.
But if a court says you can't do what you did, right? If the court says you can't send him to El Salvador, he's protected from doing that. This feels like a little little game of telephone. The president says, I can't make him do this. And then the president of El Salvador says, well, I won't do it. And then they say, sorry, court system, we're not going to comply. Do you see why this would be concerning for people?
I think the bottom line, Chris, is that Americans should be happy that a member of MS-13 is off of American streets. I sure am. I would not want this individual to be my neighbor. I think it's disturbing, actually, that the news media is really doing the bidding of this individual. What about the victims? What about the victims of MS-13, those who have been raped, those who have been kidnapped, those who have suffered from the drug trafficking at the hands? That should be the real conversation we're having. But, you know, I get thousands of inquiries every single day from the media. I don't get one about the victims. I only get it about these gang members.
But you understand that the reason we talk about due process in difficult cases is that it's the difficult cases where it's really important. If we could just say that you guys could pick who were the bad people and you could send them away and you could protect everybody and you would never make a mistake and there would never be an error and there would never be a person who was a U.S. citizen or rightly in the United States or wrongly accused or all of that stuff, then it would be fine. But we know that due process is there to protect innocent people, right?
Mm-hmm. And there is due process. There's a law enforcement sensitive due process. We follow the U.S. Constitution, but it's going to be law enforcement sensitive because these are terrorist individuals. Keep in mind, President Trump designated TDA, Tren de Aragua, and MS-13 as as terrorists.
Okay. The president floated the other day, talked about it again today. We've heard it from the administration about that maybe U.S. citizens, maybe, as he said, homegrown, could be sent to foreign countries for detainment. Now, I know you don't set policy for the administration. That's not your job. But you can see why, for people who are concerned about due process, when you open the door to maybe citizens could be sent to a prison camp in El Salvador with tens of thousands of these folks, that this is going on. You can see why people's concerns about due process in these matters is heightened, right?
I will say this. Under President Biden, we had 10 to 15 million people illegally enter this country, including hundreds of thousands, if not millions, criminal illegal aliens. That who is the Department of Homeland Security is focused on getting out of this country. That is who Secretary Noem is focused on getting out of this country, and we will. And we're seeing our deportation numbers rise, and we will continue to send these individuals to Guantanamo Bay or El Salvador. It's not a pretty sight, so that's our message, is leave now. If you are in this country illegally, go home. That is your best way forward.
Okay, there you have it. Tricia McLaughlin, thanks for being here. Coming up, how is the president picking the winners and the losers in his ever-changing tariffs? It may depend on who is on his iPhone. We'll explain, plus this.
So the threat is real. And yes, that can be used against our agents. That can be used against our law enforcement.
That's Republican Congressman Juan Ciscomani talking about cartels in Mexico sending drones across the border. So how should the United States respond? We'll be live from Texas as lawmakers press the White House for answers. And she can hide, but can she run? This already famous photo of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer on an ill-fated Oval Office visit raises the question of who will be the face of the Democratic Party. We'll talk about it when the Hill returns.
I'm Leland Vittert, and you're listening to America's fastest growing cable news network, NewsNation. News for all America.
Ringing in a new week on Wall Street on a happy note as investors cheer another step back from President Trump and his trade war with China, exempting consumer electronics, the single largest category of Chinese imports to the United States. All three markets closing this afternoon in the green. The Dow, the tech-heavy NASDAQ, and the S&P 500 all up more than 0.5%. So what got the president to relent? Maybe the right question isn't what, but who?
I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently in that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country.
Joining us now, Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, former Budget Director, former Congressman, all-around great guy, and NewsNation contributor. Mick Mulvaney. Tim Cook, or Tim Apple as he was once known, apparently helped President Trump conclude that it would be bad to levy these tariffs on imports. The lobbying effort that I'm seeing in Washington right now, directly to the president, around the administration, as people look for exemptions and carve-outs, is staggering. What's your guess about what that is like as people look for favors from this administration?
Yeah, well, first, my guess is that Berman's kid is probably cheating, because I'm with you, one of the people who's been playing golf for 50 years, and I don't have a hole-in-one either. So, what I think is happening, Chris, here, if I wanted to look at the light most favorable to the administration for just a second, here's what I think might be happening. I think they're starting to remember how they did it properly the last time. Keep in mind, we put a bunch of tariffs on in 2017, 2018. We didn't tank the stock markets. We didn't scare the heck out of the bond markets. We didn't have any inflation. We didn't have a threat of recession. Why? Because we were able to use sort of this rational approach to exemptions, to find things that it simply made no sense for us to put tariffs on. Now, Peter Navarro was a big opponent of that back in 2017. He's still a big opponent on it. He's talked oftentimes about how we gave too many exemptions. But maybe the administration is figuring out there's a little bit of nuance here. You could put tariffs on, but if you can be selective in your exemptions, you might not undercut the tariffs, but at the same time sort of not harm the economy as dramatically. So I'm wondering if some of that isn't going. The lobbying is real. You're absolutely right. The wailing and gnashing of teeth about the bond markets is correct, but maybe they're trying to figure out how they did it properly the last time.
Okay, I want to read you this from the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Too bad if you make shoes or clothing or thousands of other consumer products that must pay the tariffs but lack the political or market clout to win exemptions. Too bad, too, if you're a small manufacturer that relies on a component from China but can't afford a high-priced K Street lobbyist. And, you know, the reality, of course, is if you made a consumer electronic in the United States and you had imported parts from China in the finished product, that all is going to get tariffed on the way in. But if you just import the whole laptop or the whole phone, that's not going to get tariffed. It seems like, and I certainly understand the point that you're making about in the light most favorable, but it certainly seems like the burden is going to fall here on a lot of small businesses and a lot of people who aren't in the president's contacts.
Well, sure. Let me look at a light less favorable to the administration. They're right back doing what Republicans said they don't like to do. They're picking winners and losers. By the way, it's a very populist thing. You just had a very populist conversation with the young woman from the Department of Homeland Security. You know, let's not talk about the constitutionality of this. Let's talk about how bad these people are and how safe it is to get them off the streets. And that's true, but it's a very populist sort of attitude when you want to kick the constitutional considerations aside. This is a very populist approach to tariffs. People like their iPhones. People like their iPads. It's good for business. Why not do it? They do have a lot of high-priced lobbyists. There's no question about that. I don't think Trump is as sort of susceptible to that as many people think. I still don't think he's running for another term. He doesn't care if Apple gives him any money or anything like that. So I'm not too concerned about that. But I do think they like this idea of picking winners and losers. Listen to Donald Trump in the office. If people are calling me, I'm cutting these deals, I'm doing these things. So if I wanted to look at the light least favorable to the administration, I'd say, this is what Republicans are supposed to hate.
I want to ask you, you mentioned what the representative from the Department of Homeland Security had to say. And I want to ask you, what I saw today was the president and the president of El Salvador and the folks on the team basically looking at the Supreme Court of the United States and saying, we dare you. Now, the correct reading, I'm not exactly sure, but it seemed like what the Supreme Court was trying to do for the administration was give him an off-ramp on this guy that's down in El Salvador. And I did not see an off-ramp being taken today on this question. What did you see?
Yeah, I guess I could see how you could see that. But keep in mind that if I'm the president of El Salvador, why do I care what the United States Supreme Court has said? I think his position is entirely legitimate. This is my citizen. I'm going to do with him as I see fit under our laws down here. We don't respond to the United States Supreme Court. I think that's a completely reasonable position for him to take. The Trump thing is close. The order is to facilitate. Do you get the impression that if Trump asked for the guy to come back, the guy from El Salvador would say yes? Yes, he did. But the court didn't make him do that. They didn't affirmatively put the burden on him. Look, if there's maybe one thing we can all agree on, I really didn't like the language about that he's even open to doing this to citizens. Monsters are monsters. There's no question. I don't want them on my streets. I don't want to deal with my daughter, my wife, my kids. But monsters get constitutional protections in this country. That's just the way it's got to be if we're going to continue to have a republic worth fighting for.
So is this trolling? Is this serious? What's your guess? Is this something that?
I just don't think they ever want to admit that they got something wrong. And so again, they don't look back. It's forward. And they want to move on now to another topic. And again, this is not a very sympathetic plaintiff. The young woman's point was correct. He has 2 orders of deportation. That's due process. He's absolutely received it. There's no question about that. So, I mean, this is a really, really close call. It's the next step that I'll be watching very closely.
Okay, Mick Mulvaney, we'll be counting on you. Thanks for being with us.
Let's go to the practice range, shall we?
Yeah, we need it. Okay. By the way, Ohio State visited the White House today to celebrate the school's college football championship. But one Buckeye definitely will not be making the receiver corps. Vice President J.D. Vance with a fumble, breaking the trophy in front of the entire team during the White House event. Vance had his spin on it. He said he was, I didn't want anyone after Ohio State to get the trophy, so I decided to break it. See, in Washington, even a fumble, you got to find a good spin for. There's still much more ahead. Here on the Hill, lawmakers are expressing concern about cartels sending drones into the United States. Our Allie Bradley will join us live from Texas on what's being done to counter the threat. And up at the northern border, Trump's tariffs against Canada are coming at a substantial cost. We'll talk with the governor of Montana on how his state is being affected by the trade war. Plus this.
2, 1, ignition.
Among the stars. Stars among the stars. Jeff Bezos sends an all-female crew into space, including his fiancée. So we're going to talk to our panel. If this was an Elon Musk rocket, who would he be sending up? Who would be the right-coded rocket be carrying? That's all coming up on The Hill. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Hill on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app. Or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Just moments ago, out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the man who allegedly set fire to Governor Josh Shapiro's residence was arraigned in court and denied bail. Cody Balmer told police he wanted to attack the Democratic governor with a sledgehammer. The fire caused major damage, but Shapiro and his family were able to be safely evacuated. And a live look at the White House, where the Trump administration is weighing whether or not to use drone strikes against Mexican drug cartels. Mexico's President, Claudia Sheinbaum, reiterating her opposition to that strategy, saying, we do not agree with any kind of intervention or interference. This is the Trump administration game plans how to protect U.S. assets at the border from these cartel drones. Our own Allie Bradley is live in Del Rio, Texas, with the latest. Allie, what do you know?
Hey, Chris, what's really interesting here is it doesn't appear that anybody really knows whose jurisdiction it is to take down these cartel drones. And then you have the issue of the safety of it all, because as we've reported, some of these cartel drones are actually wielding bombs. So a group of lawmakers got together and they are requesting that the Trump administration respond by Thursday as to who, where, and when these drones can really be taken down and at what cost, kind of. Who's involved here? Is it the military? Is it Border Patrol? Is it the sheriff? Who can actually dismantle these drones? So Juan Ciscomani, he's a representative out of Arizona. He was involved in this request to the Trump administration. He says the U.S. has the technology and the capability. They just need some clarity. Take a listen.
So the threat is real. And yes, that can be used against our agents. That can be used against our law enforcement. That can very well be used against our own civilian citizens of just on the border regions. We need to use, again, every tool possible to protect our citizens. And we need to first address and go through every option out there. And one of the main ones is cooperating with the Mexican government.
Ciscomani went on to say that every move that they make should be collaborated with Mexico. He says that he's pretty confident that Mexico is going to step up and help combat the criminal cartels. But he also emphasized that the U.S. really needs to utilize every tool that they have at their disposal to protect the personnel down here along the southern border. And that includes what you're looking at there. That's a jammer that can disrupt those cartel drones. But again, if they're wielding a bomb and that drops down, that could have other implications, Chris. So this all comes as a top Pentagon official. He said these special operations forces don't actually have the authority to launch these drone strikes at the cartel across the southern border. He says the foreign terrorist designation, though, does open up some of those doors in order for them to crack down on some of that drug movement that we're seeing there. And finally, the Trump administration, I'm sure as you know, Chris, they just issued a memorandum really expanding the DOD's presence down here, signaling an escalation in military involvement here at the southern border, Chris.
Okay, Allie Bradley, we thank you. Over at the northern border, up at the northern border, U.S.-Canada relations are on thin ice, and it's affecting business. Politico reports that travel to the United States from Canada is tanking. Analytics firm Tourism Economics expects travel from Canada to drop 20% this year, costing the United States more than $3 billion in lost revenue. Now, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney with strong words earlier today.
The global economy is fundamentally different today than it was yesterday. Our old relationship with the United States is over. Well, this is a tragedy. It is also the new reality. Canada must be looking elsewhere to expand our trade, to build our economy, and to protect our sovereignty.
All of this putting the spotlight on border states like Montana. Businesses in border towns like Sweetgrass, Montana, say that Canadian customers are just not showing up like they used to. Here now with us is Montana's governor, Greg Gianforte. Governor, we thank you for making time for us today. Montana is Canada's friend, Canada's neighbor, and Canada's trading partner. Talk about what you're seeing and talk about how the trade conflict is affecting things there.
Well, I think, President Trump was elected with a huge margin and a mandate to change the way we do business. I got reelected in Montana, first Republican governor to get reelected to office in almost 30 years. So I know a little bit about cleaning up Democrat messes. And I think the president's been clear he's going to use tariffs as a negotiating tool to get a better deal for America. And we're seeing that play out. There's a little bit of disruption, but I'm confident that our market is important to our foreign partners. And in the end, they're going to come to the table. I think last week when I was at the White House, the president mentioned 75 countries have come forward now saying, okay, we're going to work with you. We're going to be reciprocal in our tariffs. We're going to get in a better place. I think it's going to happen here pretty quickly.
It didn't sound from what we just heard from the Prime Minister of Canada that he was among the 75. Okay, Montana exported $869 million in goods to Canada, and 37% of Montana's total exports went to Canada. A lot of Americans think that Montana is just Yellowstone, but Montana is a huge agriculture state. You guys have lots and lots and lots of ag out there. So it's not just Canada, right? It's markets all over the world, including China. What are farmers, what's the ag community in Montana say about all this stuff?
Well, I've been out with our farmers, and I will tell you, meeting with them, they're mostly concerned about precipitation. We've had a drought. They're concerned, of course, about these foreign markets as well. But again, it's not harvest time right now. We have a period where we can reset this. And I think, as I said, President Trump's been given a huge mandate to restructure these relationships where they just haven't been fair. They haven't been fair in Canadian timber coming into the U.S. It's been disadvantaging our industries here. We just want a level playing field. And there is some disruption, no question. I would just encourage people to hang on. And I think, honestly, the president's doing what we've done here in Montana. We balance our budget in Montana. We've had surpluses. We've paid off all of our debt. Montana's completely debt-free. We've had the lowest unemployment we've had in a long, long time. And he's just applying common sense business tactics to make sure we put America first. And our farmers stand with President Trump, but we need to get these things resolved so we have a better deal for America.
I have a question for you about the coal industry in Montana, but before I do, I have to get you on this, which is you served in Congress. You know how it goes in that building back there. And you talked about the balanced budgets in Montana. They're working on a budget in Congress right now. They're working on a budget blueprint, and states could get squeezed. Montana has a ton of folks on Medicaid. There's a lot of put through money that Montana administers that you guys get to the right places out there. There could be big changes coming. Are you anticipating that? Are you getting ready for anything?
Well, we've been getting our budget under control. I had a multi-billion-dollar surplus in 2021, a multi-billion-dollar surplus in 2023, and again this legislative session. We've used that money prudently. We've cut where we can. We've taken care of deferred maintenance. We've sent checks back to every Montana family. We've lowered taxes, much like what the president has done with taxes at a national level, and we've paid off all of our debt. The result is small businesses are prospering, and we're getting to a better place. And that is in stark contrast to blue states where they've been adding taxes, adding regulation, and there's a net in-migration for Montana, and that's helping our communities prosper.
Okay, one other way you think that you can help your communities prosper is to reinvigorate the coal industry in Montana. That's what brought you to the White House. That's a big initiative for yours. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's critically important. What we did last Tuesday at the White House is the president pulled the plug on Joe Biden's failed energy policy. Under the Biden administration, we saw energy prices go up by 30%. And Montana has the largest coal reserves in the United States. We generate power very economically. Joe Biden tried to shut down our coal plant here in Montana that's been keeping the lights on in Montana for decades. We export most of that electricity to Seattle. We've been keeping the lights on in Seattle for decades. And we have one mine that most of that coal, over 90%, gets shipped to Japan. We've been keeping the lights on in Japan for decades. So we need an all-of-the-above energy policy. We can't be picking winners and losers. That's why we've seen 60% of our portfolio in Montana is already renewable, but we can't get rid of baseload power that keeps the lights on. And as our economy grows, it's driven by energy. And we need a policy and public policy and a regulatory climate that allows people to make the investments to generate the power we need to keep driving our economy. It's also a national security issue. So for all of the above reasons, I was pleased to stand side by side with the president last week at the White House to encourage this all of the above energy policy to include coal.
Okay. If you had ever shopped at Hell in a Handbasket, you would know him already. But if you haven't, there he is, Governor Greg Gianforte. We thank you very much for making time for us. Coming up.
Thank you, Chris.
Is the next face of the Democratic Party a 35-year-old progressive from New York?
So I hope you see that this movement is not about partisan labels or purity tests, but it is about class solidarity.
From Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to governors to a couple of outsiders, who will lead the Democratic Party into the midterms, out of the wilderness, and beyond? And who would the GOP least like to face in the next go-round? The full panel is here to weigh in next.
And some of you may have just heard or felt that explosion.
Be advised, the fire department in the basement of the federal building. There's a children's center.
Thanks for listening to News Nation on the Go. I'm Senior National Correspondent Brian Entin. We're here for you 24/7 on the News Nation app or on your Alexa. Just say, play News Nation.
Well, I'm Chris Starwalt, filling in for our friend Blake Berman. Not much ambiguity as to who is the face of the Republican Party these days. We know that guy. But what about the other side? You have Bernie Sanders and AOC on their national fighting oligarchy tour. Then there's centrist Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who was spotted in the Oval Office just a few days ago meeting with President Trump. Oof. Now, if there's a question as to where the energy is, it's in the streets. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders drawing gigantic crowds all over the country, but specifically this past weekend, packing in tens of thousands of folks in Los Angeles.
And what they want is for our lives to be as expensive as possible on the lowest possible wage.
Has Bernie Sanders passed the baton to the person who is quickly becoming the face of the progressive movement as Democrats get in their lanes for 2028? The full panel is with us. Yay. A. Scott Bolden, you know him. He's the News Nation political contributor. He's a big-time Democrat. Carla Sands, former ambassador to Denmark and Greenland. And Lori A. Watkins, former policy advisor to President Obama. And you know T.W. Origi. He is former communications aide to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Okay. Mr. Bolden, Counselor, we start with you.
Good.
I see a bunch of Democrats crowding over in the moderate lane, right? Mm-hmm. I see a bunch of folks who are clustering up over there. I see AOC alone. She is, and Bernie Sanders, he said, you know, my daughter, he jokingly called her his daughter. Is there going to be some progressive that's going to try to chase her?
She doesn't have any competition, but you see all these lanes, whether you're going more moderate, whether you're going to the further left or further right, they're all the faces of the Democratic Party because we are not in power. And until we get the House back or get something back in 2 years or 16 months, you're going to see a lot of Democrats taking a lot of different lanes, whether it's Cory Booker, whether it's AOC. Bernie Sanders is there, but Bernie Sanders really isn't a Democrat. He's just a populist and very progressive.
He's been hanging around with you guys for a while, though.
He has. Yes, God bless him.
I do note. Okay, watching Gretchen Whitmer was really painful. She thought that she could get the moderate bounce that John Fetterman and other Democrats managed to get in the beginning of the Trump administration come on over and say, look, I can talk to Donald Trump and I can do it. She ended up getting used as a prop and showed her pain. On the moderate side of the Democratic Party, Shapiro looks really strong right now, and especially in his response. Actually, can we hear Josh Shapiro's response to the arson attack at his house? Could you play that for us?
No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly.
Yeah. I mean, he's good, right? And he knew what to do with that moment. And I think a lot of Democrats have wished maybe they'd have picked him, that Kamala Harris had picked him. What do you say?
So I'm going to jump over all of that just because I am personally not even excited by a lot of the people that you mentioned. And I hope that someone new, refreshing emerges. And I don't think that that's going to be a politician. I don't think that that's going to be the next face of the Democratic Party, truth be told. And if I was at Coachella, no offense, and my vibes were up and Bernie Sanders came onto that stage, I probably would have left. And I'm a Democrat saying that, okay? Who I want to just float out there and kind of see some people's reaction is what about a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? And I say that. We're talking about Stephen A. Smith. We need a person that can cut across all of the BS, come out and emerge as a person that is not a politician, but that connects with Americans, and that he is not afraid to speak up and say, this guy was elected to lower your prices, and that's not what's happening. And I think where he can get his start, and this is like the breaking news, is in the state of Florida, my home state. He can jump in, win a governor's race in 2026, give him 8 months, 9 months, then he can decide if he wants to run in 2028 or sit it out and wait and go do a full term. But either way,
put up a QR code so he can scan it.
I know.
So he can hire you. He can hire you to work in Florida.
America needs you.
There's only one Donald Trump, right?
That's right.
And the celebrity politics stuff is appealing because big name recognition, and Donald Trump obviously benefited from his huge name recognition.
100%.
What do you think about the possibility of Democrats doing the celebrity thing?
Well, I think so. I think that's the only thing they're grasping for that they have, because we've got Bernie Sanders, the socialist. We've got Gretchen Whitmer. She literally covered her face with her instincts are bad. And she was really, really hyper controlling during COVID. If you think about keeping abortion clinics open while she closed churches and, places people really needed. They have no bench. They have no bench. We've got governors, senators, business leaders that are also leading by example. So our bench is deep. I think it's going to be Republicans to lose as long as the Congress and the Senate supports President Trump.
Are you listening to a podcast while you do this? Is that what's going on?
But if the tariffs keep going the way we're going, Democrats have a deep bench. But if the economy goes south with these tariffs and inflation, and the Donald Trump, the great one, doesn't get this under control, he's adding more pain than the Biden pain.
All right, TW, who do you not want to face? If you could say, who's the Democrat that you least wanted Republicans to have to face in 2028, who would it be?
I'm actually going to answer that question. Wes Moore.
Yeah, he
scares me.
Not Shapiro?
Shapiro, I think Shapiro is a very talented politician.
He seems good at this.
But he does. But some of it seems a little performative at times, like he's trying to mimic Barack Obama. But I think he's very talented. I think his response is good. He has great instincts. Look, first of all, I don't think The Rock is a Democrat, so that might be the first problem.
And why is that a bad thing?
Well, here's the thing. Democrats don't have a message. Right. It's tough to find a leader when your only message is Trump bad, status quo good.
See, I think the message is easy. There's no messenger.
He has no policy.
Here's the problem. AOC and Bernie Sanders, yes, they have tons of energy. The base of both parties have a ton of energy. The problem is, it is that energy in the socialist perspective that led the Democrats to losing last cycle. So if they want to double down on what made them lose, be my guest.
Scott, you can have 30 seconds to be mad about that.
And I want to counter him on tariffs.
Well, none of us are socialists. I'm a business Democrat, and there are a lot of lanes in the Democratic Party. We'll get there on the messaging, but given the damage that Donald Trump is doing, TW, the messaging keeps changing once we set it because he keeps doing so much damage to this economy. How long will Republicans and Democrats and independents who voted for him, how long will they hang with him?
Okay, we got to take a break because coming up, Jeff Bezos is launching his fiancée and pop star Katy Perry and 5 other women into outer space.
2, 1, ignition.
But what if this was Elon Musk's space trip? What if this was a right-coded trip instead of a left-coded trip? Who would he send up? The panelists will return with their answers to this fascinating question. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, Helena Doble will be filling in and talking with former FBI executives about another plot to kill President Trump. That starts at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on NewsNation.
This is NewsNation with a trust rating higher than any of our competitors. NewsNation is proud to be America's fastest growing cable news network. See for yourself at joinnn.com.
Command engine start. 2, 1, ignition. Liftoff. New Shepard has cleared the tower.
Jeff Bezos' space company Blue Origin making a kind of history today by sending the first all-female crew to space. The new Shepard 31 rocket carrying a few celebrities, including Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sanchez, pop star Katy Perry, Gail King, and 3 other crew members, the mission lasting roughly 10 minutes. The crew traveling 62 miles above the Earth's surface. During part of the flight, Katy Perry sang Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World" as the crew exited the capsule. Perry and Gail King were spotted kissing the ground. The full panel back with us now. And
she had a daisy, too, with her.
In Washington,
daughter's name.
Oh, okay. In Washington, we ruin everything by making it political. So why not this, right? And so if this was sort of the left-coded version of this, if this is the blue pill version of this with Katy Perry and Gail King and these folks, we wondered what would it be like if it was the MAGA version of this and it was Elon Musk. So TW, we start with you. Who would be on the MAGA flight to space?
I put this in Grok, this question, in Elon Musk's AI.
You're doubling down.
And I realized something. The 5 people it gave me, I don't think he'd want that ship back. I think he'd be happy to
keep going. Let it ride.
I'll just give a couple names I think would be wild. An AI android of Margaret Thatcher. Caitlyn Jenner, because I think he'd love the reaction.
Oh, that's a good one.
Caitlyn Jenner and his mother. And then Amy Gleason. We never hear from the shadowy head of Doge.
Yeah.
Give her a ride.
What about Kristi Noem? No?
And Kristi Noem, she loves playing dress up.
Okay.
She's great in a spacesuit.
TW has embraced the spirit. Carla, who's on your list?
Oh, I think Kid Rock all the way.
That's a
He's
dude.
got the heartland values. No, these are men and women.
Who are the ladies?
Oh my gosh. Well, they'd be young and beautiful, younger than the women that went up on
you're mean.
Oh, wow. But anyway, and probably hotter. I'm sorry. These are the standards.
Okay, Scott, very quickly, we're running out of time.
I picked my colleague Carla Sands.
Oh,
so when she got back, we could get the scoop and she'd appear and tell us about it.
What a smoothie.
I know she would. There you go.
That guy's good. Hire him. All right, Lori, what do you say?
Kristi Noem was on my card. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ivanka Trump. And I'm going to throw in... because you threw in a womanizer I'm going to throw in, which is Kanye West, because who would...
Oh, my God.
Right? Who would not want to see him in the mix on that rocket ship?
Everyone in the rocket ship.
Everyone in the rocket ship. Who would you get to go with it?
I regret this concept immediately. Panel, we thank you very much for making time with us. Thanks for watching The Hill on News Nation. Set your DVR to watch us at 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back tomorrow. Elizabeth Vargas Reports starts right now.